Today we are officially starting on paint prep for the Miata. Now this is going to be a long journey of a whole bunch of sanding, filling, making sure everything is perfectly smooth, but this is what we're doing. The plan of attack is actually really simple, as we're just gonna dive right into this. What we're going to do is we're gonna break up the sander, we're gonna slap on some 220 grit sandpaper and just start sanding everything down. The goal is to be able to find any areas that need filling, and this will really help expose it. So this is the step one in the long process of getting everything smooth, so let's go ahead and get going here.
Christmas is coming, and I have put a whole bunch of work in designing a bunch of new designs for the Christmas season. They are up and available now on the website at philosupra.com, and they will only be here for a limited time up through the new year, so make sure to grab them now because any order before December 1st will guaranteed be shipped at the beginning of the month, so that means that they will be here for Christmas time. So go ahead and give everything a look and snag yourself something warm, something cozy, and something that represents your car passion for this holiday season.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up and we follow the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and clean my throat. We all have our reasons why we are on this track. Oh, we all have our burdens, yeah, but we just keep on fighting and we never look back. Here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're.
All right, at this point we got our first layer of sanding done. Everything has been hit with 220 grit, and I went ahead and put on some filler on a bunch of the areas that need to be filled. Now there's a bunch of stuff on the fender, the hood needed a little bit, but the rest of the body is actually pretty straight. There's some small dents back there that needed to get ticked off, but the doors in general are actually pretty straight, which is gonna save us a whole bunch of work. This other fender on this side is the one that's in need of the most work, but it's actually overall not too bad. It's a bunch of smaller dings and dents from when it got hit, but pretty much most of this is all gonna get sanded off anyway, so it should end up with a pretty smooth fill. So I'm pretty excited for that. Anyway, that's the update where we're at right now. I'm gonna go ahead and wait for that filler to dry. Then I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with a higher grit sandpaper, try to work it my way back down to 220 grit, get it all nice and smooth, and then hit it with a quick layer of primer, and we'll see where we're at from there to see if we need to hit it with a few more coats. But so far so good, making good progress. Let's just keep it going. officially done with our first layer of filler. So this is essentially what it looks like now. A lot of it has gone down to bare metal just from using a higher grit has gotten it pretty much all scuffed down. I'm not too concerned about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with a second layer of filler. Now, a lot of this actually came out really well done and doesn't really need an extra layer that much just because we put so much on the first time, but it does need another one specifically because of areas like this. Don't know how well it's focusing, but as I've said before in other videos, all these darker areas are just holes where it kind of had bubbles inside the filler. So we're gonna go over it one more time to make sure that those are all perfectly smooth. In addition, we have areas like this hood that do actually need more filler in them, and not just because of these pinholes. So now you'll notice as I'm sanding here, we have spots here and we have spots here that are darker than everything else. Now this is because they were sanded all the way down through that top coat, all the way down to bare metal in some of these cases, because these are high points. Now, if you're looking at that, there's a high point here, there's a high point here, and this area in between isn't sanded out to the same depth, which means that it is all lower because we've been using a block sander. We're gonna have to go through and fill this out again because this whole entire thing needs to be raised up a bit so we could then sand it down to be perfectly smooth. Same situation with here on the corner. Again, it's a little hard to tell, but there's a hard edge right here, and it's something where it didn't get filled out enough because, again, right here on this edge, this was sanded out all the way down to the bare metal, but right here was not, which means that between here and here is a low spot and needs to be filled back out. Those are the areas we're going to address, get a little more filler on, so we're going to go ahead and hit those, let them dry overnight, and then we'll be back tomorrow for some more sanding. All right, we got this step done. We let it dry overnight, sanded it all down, we're good to go, but we do have, unfortunately, an even bigger issue, and it comes right here. So this was all rusted out and I took a wire wheel brush to it to try to knock off as much as I can. And it looks like some attempted rust prevention was done, but all it really looks like it was done was there was foam shoved in the back end and that was it. There wasn't even filler on the outside. So I'm not entirely sure what the process was here. So what I need to do is I need to find my angle grinder, which is actually the biggest issue because I have no idea where it's at. And I need to cut up here, along here, and pretty much cut this whole section out so that way we could remake it with fiberglass and get this rust out of here because there's no chance that this can really be salvaged. I mean, looking underneath, this whole section is just a little bad. Luckily, I think once we get it all out, we can knock it all down with a wire brush, hit it with some primer, get it all coated over, but this does need to come off. So I need to find my wire wheel brush and then we'll be able to knock this out. All right, a lot of time has passed and we're at a spot where we are ready to go on to the next stage, which actually is going to be a little bit of painting, but stuff before we paint the whole entire car. And let me explain what that looks like. But first, let me show you where we're at. So I did those extra layers of filler to get everything smoothed out as best as I possibly can. Now, some of you, again, may be wondering, why am I not just getting new fenders instead of trying to repair this one? Well, I'm at a point where I'm having to budget, or not budget necessarily, in a sense it is, but I'm having to weigh the pros and cons of the amount of money I'm putting in versus the money I'm going to put out. Because I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, but the whole plan with this car is to be able to get it restored, get it working, sell it, and use that money to get the 3000 GT going. And so I'm really having to contemplate what investments are going to actually pay off. So there is one other big thing big-ish thing that I bought for this car in order to up its value that I feel like is significant, but I don't feel like having the fenders completely perfect is going to be that thing, especially when I consider the fact that despite the amount of work we've done and all of it improving it, there are still going to be issues with this car that would lower the value more than putting new fenders would increase the value, if that makes sense. And I think it does. So all that being said, we are smooth enough here where it's good enough for me. Front is smoothed out here. I threw one pin in just to make sure that it actually fits. And again, I do want to make something that goes around here. They have these little spots drilled out, but I just want to make something that's going to be a cover. I'm going to do that after I paint, so that way I don't have to worry about masking anything off. This fender is pretty good, about as good as it's going to get. And then of course, the area that we've been spending the most time recently working on is this side fender here, and it looks pretty good. Now it's a little tough to see here, but it is pretty smoothed out in comparison. And I'm sorry I don't have a light, but when you compare it to this other side here, it actually blends out pretty well. Another unrelated nugget, I actually found some super rare original wheels with almost brand new tires for a steal of a deal. So I went ahead and grabbed those, so that way we're not running just steel wheels on the car that we're just restoring. So super excited that I got a great deal on some really nice wheels. So that is awesome. I've also been working on the front bumper off to the side. It had a little bit of fiberglass work that needed to be done, but we're all smooth out here and good to go. So what is next for the car? Next thing we need to do is we need to start painting the bottom of it. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's this little stripe along the bottom of the car. If you look at this car for reference, and it happens on all Miatas, this bottom section here at the bottom of the door, there's this black stripe that goes all the way along, and I need to do it on this car. I've had it all sanded down, but especially since we're redoing the back and redoing this front here, or sanding this all down, it doesn't have that black stripe, and I want to be able to paint that back on. So all that being said, that is the next step that we have in line. We're going to clean everything up in a literal sense, wipe it down, get that all painted up. We're going to hit it with a primer, we're going to hit it with a base coat. We're not going to hit it with a clear, because we'll do that once we paint the entire car. But once we do that, we will be at a point where we'll then be able to get the car on the ground, get it for a quick test drive, and then be ready to hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, start painting tomorrow. So that's the goal for today. I got a lot of work ahead of me. Let's just get going. All right, we got it painted on the bottom half. It's still drying up now, but we have our nice gloss metallic black on the bottom half there, and that'll get a nice layer of clear coat when we do the actual car itself. So that'll be taped off to start. When we do the clear coat, we'll yank that tape off, throw a clear coat over everything so it's nice and even. But that brings us to the end of this episode almost. The very last thing that I want to do is I want to get the wheels on the car and set it on the ground. That is my goal for it. Just to have it at that point where it's like, all right, we're done, because the next step for me is painting. Which means I'm gonna have to go over, clear out paint booth where we're gonna go paint this, take this for a test drive, make sure it all works so we could then head over and get it painted up in the next episode. So yeah, we are nearing a finale at this point, and it's once again amazing to be at this point. I'm so thankful that we're here. This is incredible. I can't wait for you guys to see this, to see that final transformation where it finally goes from this mismatch of was this car, honestly. I mean, not with this bumper, but geez, this thing was a mess, and now we're here. So cool to see that finish line in the very, very near future. I can't wait to share with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Another reminder that the Christmas merch is out now, only available through the end of December. And I don't know if this video is gonna be, no, it's not, never mind. I was gonna say, I think this video may be out before December. It's not. If you're lucky enough to order before December, all shipments are guaranteed to ship before December 1st, which is phenomenal. If you order it now, which I think this video is still a couple weeks out, there's a good chance it might show up before Christmas. If not, you'll have something ready for the rest of the holiday season and for next year. And by the way, it's still a good sweater. Just, it's comfortable. It's great. I love them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time for when we paint the Miata. Adios.